got back in for grandma's for today, but usually on these excursions, I end up listening to audibles to and from her house because it takes about an hour to get there and then about an hour to get back. And this time I listened to a little bit of that Powered Year 1 by Drew Hayes, I think. I listened to the graphic audio version, not the, initial audiobook version, just because, at this point, uh, they do have pretty good setups, and it is like listening to old time like radio play almost, and you have a full cast. Um, so I'm honestly just going in with that initial impression rather than from even the books or the other Audible version, which just has the one narrator. Um, what drew me to the opening actually did manage to hook me because the numbers guy and the Mr. Transport, interesting setup there. It kind of reminded me of the darn observers from the Fringe TV series in a way, except that they're both humans with extra bit of superpowers. One obviously, is able to teleport many different places as long as he's hanging on to people. He can bring them as well. And the numbers guy, I know it was a little bit of it was explained about what his power does. He's able to kind of like calculate how some events might play out, so they know some sort of organization is going up against them for whatever reason. So the initial mystery that those two pose pulled me in. And this thing didn't start off with the characters and their whatever their big personal issues were, which I'm like, thank goodness, because for me personally, the whole superheroes in the academy training thing, even though I like stuff like My Hero Academia, I'm still like I'm tired of the whole superhero school bent, but that's just me personally. A lot of people still enjoy that aspect. Um, Oh God, what else? He did a basic setup of the characters, at least these people that were experimented on in order to be able to have more control over their powers. Personally, I wouldn't have done as much describing on how their powers work. I would have just basically cut that exposition out and just showcased a few little incidents like what he did with Mr. Numbers and Mr. Transport. It's like, okay, you're basically showing me in those aspects of them popping around everywhere, like how some of their capabilities work without being like, here's a exposition, explanation, which happens later on with the. There, some of them are 18, and a handful of characters I think are about maybe a little bit older than that. But even though it's a college setting, they still very much act like more like high school, and a fair amount of them are like, you have the one, I'm daddy's girl in a Barbie world, where she's basically what you consider the kind of alpha bitchy social female, which again I've seen a lot of that. So in comparison to say Anna, I made Anna an absolute bitch on purpose because she was getting terrified by all these possible outcomes that the weave was showing her. And in light of all that, with the later issues, you finally get to understand why she was so freaking suspicious of whatever Star was doing. And it didn't help that all these visions, affected her former marriage and everything. But I honestly, if I make a character kind of bitchy like that, I want it to be a very good reason why. For this book, I'm just like, okay, it looks like, because again, I'm looking at it more from a writer perspective. In this instance, it's like, so he's gonna take kind of like this slightly bubbly daddy's girl who's always gotten everything they wanted, and probably going to have her go through like some sort of arc where she'll understand the little people, a little bit more later. Which, yeah, that also goes off of a comment I saw that I think God, who made it? I'm trying to remember. It'll come back to me because I just now got in and everything. But the arrogance of some characters, there's a difference between bravado and arrogance. That is definitely a fact. And right now, this particular daddy's girl, you know, uh, yeah, she's a bit arrogant. Um, they have, of course, the other guy who I guess kind of has a more Hulk setup where he has this alternate personality that could go Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And this program they were all put into helps them control their powers more, so that way it's not as chaotic. The one girl, uh, Mary, I remember her a bit more just because they kind of focus. That's the thing in books, like focus on 2 or 3 traits about the character. It'll be easier to remember them, help them stand out more. Which to me, I think Mr. Hayes did a better job putting stuff forward with Mary versus Prep Girl with her. Because sadly, yeah, her father's the alchemist, but for the life of me, I'd have to go back through the audiobook to remember what her name is. S something. See, that's the thing. That all this stuff is gonna hit readers from a different direction depending on what they want to focus on. For me, when it comes to superhero setups, um, even if I can't really quite remember the character's name, if you give them something to stand out a little bit, then it's like, okay, I'll remember like who this is, even if I don't remember their name. Because when you're initially getting into like a series or something, yeah, you won't always remember the names, but you'll remember what stands out about the character. Like the one guy with the unusual, very white hair. He's the one that can suck in all the energy, and then if it reaches a critical point, when he couldn't control it properly, he basically took out a city-wide grid of electrical grid. Then there's the kid with the sunglasses, that he wears the sunglasses all the time, and he has the massive luck roll kind of setup. Eventually I'll probably remember some of their names, but again, it all depends on the reader's wheelhouse. And for me, seeing like a clandestine super organization kind of like going in there trying to figure out how to do certain things with like these half supers, I guess powereds, which nobody likes them because they can't really control their powers very well. So they're trying to do this experiment to see if they can get them to the level of just the regular super endowed people. So yeah, there you have it. I got like about 2 hours into it, and they're just starting all these classes. I'm not so much interested in that part. I'm kind of more interested, again, what's happening with this one organization that that these 2 agents are a part of, and who they're ultimately trying to go up against. It's just a personal preference of mine, so that's probably what's going to keep me going with this series. Not so much the the kids trying to master their powers as much. And I can even say, even with My Hero Academia, yeah, the wider world stuff is interesting me more than like this is them training at the academy and learning how to use their powers. Because I've said this before, like me, when it comes to my own series, you're not going to see too much on-screen like training. You'll see little bits here and there, like especially in Book 0, but it's only like a scene or two, and then we're carrying on with the main story. Because for me personally, as a reader and writer, since I've already gone through basic training with the Navy, I've already seen plenty of basic training scenarios in various military sci-fi books. I personally am not as interested in basic training, or the school environment for it. But there's still enough of other elements to where I'll keep going with this, and I don't mind the graphic audio adaptation. I have a feeling, compared to what I can see of the time running for both the regular Audible and this, even though they're probably getting rid of part of the story to carry the overall main narrative along, I honestly, in this day and age, I kind of prefer that, because even with Uplift Protocol, when I spaced out each book, some of the later books are only going to be about 250 maybe 280 pages. But since I'm collecting everything into 4 different omnibuses, it'll be a nice little collection for everybody. And yeah, I guess that's about it for now. I guess I can call this like part 1, because I'll still be reading or slash listening to this in the car half the time. That's how I catch up with stuff. So I still gotta record a few more things for tomorrow, but for now I'm gonna get back to my writing. You guys have a good evening.